In my mid-30s, I began battling depression, and I experienced what I would call my first real dark night of the soul. I reached out for therapy, and that therapist was the first person that helped me name the childhood trauma I had experienced. Today, I want to share the top 5 inner life lessons that I learned during those first years of my healing journey. Before we get started, it might be helpful to share just the briefest backstory. It was the mid-90s, and I was living in Boulder, Colorado with my at-the-time husband. He was working towards his PhD, and we had 3 young kiddos. We were living in student housing. The apartment was small, and the money was tight, so we had a lot of real-life stressors, but that wasn't the problem. The truth was, from my early childhood into my teen years, I had experienced ongoing neglect and abuse in my family of origin. This had deeply shaped my inner world and my outer world. But the good news was, everything was about to change. Later in the 90s, a couple years later, I had developed a mentoring relationship with a very dear friend. I remember calling her one day to offload my emotional misery. At the time, she had begun training in an inner healing model that was helping people resolve negative core beliefs. She asked me if I wanted to try it. I believe she added, "What do we have to lose?" And she was right. As my friend and I started meeting and engaging in this new inner healing process, my first life lesson emerged. Lesson number 1 is, my current circumstances are not my biggest problem. It didn't take long for me to figure out that I was living in 2 different worlds. My outer world, which seemed to be the source of my stress and challenges, and my inner world, which opened up more and more with each meeting. Okay. The emotional triggers that I was experiencing from my circumstances were actually the gateway to a deep inner world that had taken shape in my childhood and through my adult life. This I knew next to nothing about, but there was a crack in the armor. Lesson number 2, my negative core beliefs were the problem. As my friend facilitated the session, we would follow my current emotion to the earliest memory in which the same emotion was present. We would sit together in a prayerful state, and she would ask questions to help me unearth the core belief that was fueling the emotional trigger. As the core belief came into the light, we would invite Spirit to bring God's perspective to that part of me. I really wish I had the notes from those early sessions, but my best recollection is that I was primarily being healed from shame and fear. My core identity belief was that I was deeply flawed. I felt super messed up. I also held the belief that if people really knew me, I would be rejected. These, along with many other unhelpful core beliefs, were revealed and resolved over the coming years. As my core beliefs shifted, the habits and patterns I had developed thinned out and shifted as well. On to lesson number 3. Inviting a higher power into my painful memories was changing my life. After a few sessions, I was gaining emotional capacity. I was able to function with less anxiety, and I was becoming less reactionary. Huge shifts were happening. Nothing had changed in my outer circumstances, but I was living in greater peace, joy, and emotional health. Over the years, I've learned that memory isn't held as an exact replication of our life events, and this inner work wasn't about changing my memories. Healing was happening as I recognized, released, and replaced the core beliefs that were causing emotional pain and unhelpful habits and patterns that had evolved out of that. Because most of my core beliefs were formed in early childhood, many of these memories were buried in my subconscious mind. I have learned that beliefs can shift very quickly when I receive divine understanding. God's perspective was replacing the old core beliefs with new beliefs. When truth would enter my spirit, my nervous system and my body would automatically relax. This internal shift would move me from survival mode into peace and safety. I would experience an expanded state of consciousness that existed beyond my current interpretation of life events. All these powerful, life-changing truths often come through in very simple messages. It wasn't your fault. You are not alone. You are loved. You are worthy. At times, there were no words, just an awareness of a presence in the memory that carried an implied message of compassion, love, and safety. Inner life lesson number 4 is that my authentic self is separate from other parts of me. Okay. There are many psychological and spiritual theories about what is the core essence of our humanness. I experience my authentic self as my human spirit. It is a discernible part of me that holds divine spark and the deepest essence of my being. As I was healing and gaining internal capacity, I began to understand that there were other parts of me that had been shaped by traumatic events, but also my family of origin and my Western boomer culture. These parts held the unhealthy core beliefs and the reactions and patterns that were often running my life. Initially, I was very reactionary towards these weaker and more vulnerable parts. I have learned to recognize and receive these distinct and separate parts of me so they can be heard, understood, and integrated with my authentic self. I continue to lovingly accept, heal, and guide all the parts of myself. Helping people live from their authentic self and to find peace, enjoyment, and meaning is my life's work. I am developing this channel as a resource. I'm sharing my experiences, the things that I've learned, and the tools that I've developed, believing that it will be helpful to others. Moving on to lesson number 5, which is possibly one of the more important lessons in a way, because we have to learn to face our pain. If I refused to face the pain I was in, I would not have experienced transformation. Avoiding emotional pain was keeping me stuck in these limiting beliefs and patterns. I had built up a powerful protective denial barrier between the parts of me that presented in my day in and day out life and the parts of me that were carrying what felt like overwhelming pain. The fear of being overwhelmed by my emotions and the sensations in my body could have kept me from moving forward with my inner healing process. This has all been rewired and resolved in layers over time as I have learned to find inner trust and safety in my opening up. Thank you for listening. Let me know how you experience what I've shared today, or leave some thoughts about your own inner healing journey in the comments below. Please share this video with someone that you believe will benefit from this content.